Hi. It's a hard lot of acts to follow this afternoon. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on Aboriginal land, Gadigal land, land that was never ceded, sold or given away. I pay my respects to the elders past and present and acknowledge that this is Aboriginal land, always was and always will be. This is also the homeland of Julian Assange, and it is reprehensible that the Australian government ignores its obligations to protect and support one of its own citizens in his time of need. Rather than defend our citizens, we are opening our borders, our Northern Territory, to American troops and proving that we are truly a client state rather than an independent nation. As a client state, we are too cowardly to take an independent stance on protecting Julian Assange. The government is too busy towing the American line. But we have seen that no country wants to take the risk of upsetting the United States in its vendetta against Wikileaks and its founder, Julian Assange. We know that he currently sits in the Ecuadorian embassy awaiting a decision that will only give him a temporary reprieve and could see him end up in a country where his safety will be far from guaranteed. However, it is highly unlikely that Assange will ever be able to leave the embassy without being arrested the moment he sets foot on British soil. How he can even get to the airport without being arrested is a matter for speculation. And it is highly unlikely that this will be more than a temporary reprieve in the ongoing extradition battle. The publishing of the Iraq and Afghanistan war diaries and the trench of diplomatic cables showed the true nature of government and the power it wields on the global stage. The war diaries, particularly the film of the heartless murder of an Iraqi journalist, his cameraman and countless innocent civilians, shocked the world and exposed the great disconnect between the American use of power and the fate of innocent Iraqi citizens and citizens around the world. The growing use of remotely controlled weaponry, the use of central command stations has dehumanised and desensitised military operations to the extent where it's just another video game. This is particularly true where drones are concerned, which are becoming rapidly the new face of government power, whether it's civil or military. Wikileaks showed the true face of power, and its continuing release of cables and documents highlighted the dysfunctional nature of power relations across the world. By exposing these cables and documents, Wikileaks gave power to ordinary people to see government for what it really is. For most people who saw the video or read the cables, the truth highlighted the real David and Goliath nature of the US war machine versus the ordinary people of the world. This is the real crime that Julian Assange faces. It's not really about dubious rape claims and murky political manoeuvrings in Sweden. It is about the crime of exposing the nature of the state in all its cruelty, pettiness and ridiculous posturing. Now that we have seen the workings of government, we can never go back to the innocence of the pre-WikiLeaks days. We have a duty to protect WikiLeaks and Julian Assange from the heavy boot of power and the neoliberal system it supports. The blockade of WikiLeaks by the likes of Visa, MasterCard and PayPal showed the way big business and the state work together against anyone who dares to expose in a critical manner the Machiavellian nature of power. Last time I spoke, I referred to the importance of truth-telling and how our governments hide the truth and feed people thought bubbles and doublespeak. Our war reporters are embedded with the coalition's troops in Afghanistan, and rarely do we see any real analysis in the mainstream media, which was so beautifully pointed out by Jake Lynch earlier. It's all patriotism and flag waving, but little understanding of what is really happening on the ground. We rightly mourn our fallen soldiers, but how little space is given to the suffering of the fallen people of Afghanistan. Rarely do we see stories about how the behaviour of the coalition's troops and the dreaded arbitrariness of drones are feeding the ranks of the Taliban. We need an independent press to give people a picture of the real world and the machinations of government. We need an organisation like Wikileaks to keep us informed as they have done in the past. In a world where the Olympic Games, once a celebration of peace, have been hijacked by this siege mentality, with batteries of rockets on apartment buildings, 36,000 troops to keep the peace, and drones circling overhead. We realise that the dystopian future that has been predicted by so much science fiction is with us now. It is a world at a tipping point in every way, and it is essential that organisations like Wikileaks are able to operate and release information that has always been hidden from regular people like us. It is a world where people are saying enough is enough, and movements like Occupy Wall Street and Anonymous are standing up against the establishment. It is a world that needs its Wikileaks. The Greens have stood behind this movement, and we will continue to call for the Australian government to support Julian and in his precarious position as it stands at the moment. Free Bradley Manning, support Julian, and let's keep Wikileaks keeping the bastards honest. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. And the Greens have been incredible supporters of Julian Assange and Wikileaks, particularly Senator Scott Ludlam and Irene and many other politicians of the Greens party.